Dr. Lawrence Burton has announced his cancer clinic will break ground early next month along Interstate 40 in Midwest City. Burton is the inventor of the immuno-augmentative therapy treatment for cancer. The process involves injecting different antibody-building serums, helping the body's own natural defenses stop the progression of cancer. Representative Carl Twidwell authored legislation that makes Dr. Burton's therapy legal in Oklahoma. The bill won unanimous approval in the legislature this year. Twidwell's wife, Marjorie, has cancer. She has recently returned from the Bahamas, where she received a 5-week treatment at another clinic operated by Burton. And although the new therapy has come under fire from the local medical community, Twidwell says the treatments have done wonders for his wife.
She's doing real well on the treatment. She just got back home from the Bahamas. She took an additional 5-week treatment, and it's affecting her real well. She's doing real well under the treatment.
Burton and Twidwell say they expect to be accepting patients at the Midwest City Clinic by January 1st, 1983. Kurt Autry, Action 4.
From this point forward in these proceedings, I believe I don't have a copy of any motion to dismiss. Is doing. Go ahead. Mr. Briggs has been remanded to this court after hearing Supreme Court.
Fire trucks rushed from the Tiffany apartment house to the Brahms ice cream store on 68th and North May. Flames had already spread up the back wall and onto the roof. The wood shingles had been no contest for the rapidly spreading flames. Fire hoses that had just been rolled up at Tiffany were now enrolled again as the firefighters fought their second major blaze of the night. The firemen split up. One crew broke into the front of the store to battle oncoming flames. They were met by thick clouds of smoke. While this crew dragged their hoses through the broken front door, other crews worked in the back, where smoke and flames had already destroyed the rear of the building. It's believed the fire started in this area, in a trash dumpster that had been sitting against the wall. The fire then spread up the wall and onto the roof. The fire alarm died just as the final flames were dying down. Once the fire was completely out, an investigation was made to estimate the damages. Losses will total over $50,000, probably close to $60,000 once cleanup begins. Sherry Sellers, Action 4.
Vendors who want to sell items valued at more than $750 to state agencies must go through the State Board of Public Affairs. The vendor submits a sealed bid to the State Purchasing Office. Once certified, the competitive bids are kept under lock and key until the scheduled opening date. The sealed bids are later opened by a representative of the Central Purchasing Office during a public session. The bids are tabulated, and the contract for goods is supposed to be awarded to the bidder with the lowest and best bid. But the state auditor's report criticizes the chairman of the State Board of Public Affairs. When the buyers recommended no award, DHS officials complained to the chairman of the State Board of Public Affairs. The chairman then instructed the purchasing director to handle the requisitions as written or to make the award as requested by DHS. Board Chairman Wayne Chandler denies that Welfare Department Director Lloyd Rader twisted his arm to change a buyer's decision.
If he had a problem with us, he would call me and ask, how do we solve this? I have never been in a situation where he's told me, I'd like for you to do this. I have been in a situation with him. Let's talk it over. And he has been here on a couple occasions to talk something over. But at no time, with the tremendous amount of power that he has and is accorded him, has he ever violated the fact that we are friends.
Has he ever asked you to break state law?
No. It has never been even suggested.
State Auditor Tom Daxon has turned his findings over to state and local prosecutors for possible action. Scott Wallace, Action 4 at the state capitol.
Oh, theoretically, yes. It's possible for manipulations.
How would that be? I mean, you open the bid, is that right?
Yes, we open.
How about something else like Cool in the Gang, just like this? Tell me, how you gonna do? All right, baby, back up off the wall. Bang, come on. Boy, that sure was fun, huh? Maybe I did this time. You hit him out while we ask you questions.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, that way we'll work things out, boy. How old am I?
On July 5th, the controller of the currency declared Penn Square Bank insolvent. The Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation moved in supplies to prepare for running the bank. The next day, long lines began forming as people closed their accounts and began looking for another bank. If a group of 11 investors have their way, a lot of these people will choose a new state bank. Oklahoma City Attorney Horace Rhodes has joined State Senator Roger Randall and the other investors in filing an application with the state banking department. They put up $2.5 million. The application says a substantial inconvenience will be suffered if a new bank is not open to meet the needs of the northwest Oklahoma City area previously served by Penn Square Bank. And Rhodes said the new bank will be different from Penn Square Bank in one important respect.
We do not conceive of it being a bank that will be an energy bank as such. We conceive of it as a bank that will service that part of Oklahoma City, both for people to have their individual checking accounts and for commercial enterprises in that area to use it as a bank. It would include some energy loans, undoubtedly, because this is an energy state.
If approved, Rhodes said the new bank would probably be located either here at the former Penn Square Bank or at the new Triad Center. The bank would be named the Phoenix State Bank, and that seems appropriate because in mythology, the phoenix was the bird that rose from the ashes. Bill Ross, Action 4, at the site of the former Penn Square Bank.
There is a philosophy with gambling that well, most people call it a get something for nothing. I like to call it a get nothing for something philosophy. And that leads to all kinds of difficulties. Actually, the gambling industry does not contribute significantly to the either products or services. Consequently, it is not good for society.
The disappearance of 10-year-old Doug Dixon sparked off a lengthy, intense search. Police comb Memorial Park and its neighboring areas on foot, in cars, and even on horseback. A helicopter took to the air to hover over areas search crews couldn't cover, and a command post was set up. Dozens of calls came in there concerning sightings of the boy, but it was a police sighting that actually led to his rescue. An officer found out one witness had given him false information and had lied about his name. He was later identified as 24-year-old Oscar Johnson.
We continued to pursue that particular angle throughout the investigation, and in doing so, developed information regarding 4 incidents totally unrelated to Douglas Dixon. During the course of the investigation, we filed charges against Johnson. We continued to look into the city parks, trying to locate Johnson and Douglas Dixon, unsuccessfully.
New information came in that Johnson could be found in Tulsa's parks. So Detective Willer Page went to Tulsa and, as luck would have it, found Oscar Johnson as well as Doug Dixon in Riverside Park. Doug was taken to the Tulsa police headquarters. He was questioned there until late last night. Johnson was placed in the Tulsa City Jail along with 2 of his friends who have now become suspects in the case. The boy's father will never forget the moment the long-awaited call came.
About 4:17 to be exact this afternoon when he called us up at the office and said they found Doug. And I guess I hit every red light coming back to the house to tell Peggy.
A police escort brought Doug back to Oklahoma City. With him was a 13-year-old boy found with Johnson. It's believed he's a runaway from OKC. Police questioned Doug briefly upstairs, but still can only speculate on what happened.
What he's told us so far, he was held against his will by a couple of different subjects and was unable to use a telephone or to seek help, from what we understand right now. As far as any external injuries to Douglas, he does have a couple of visible bruises on him. He will be examined at the hospital, and then we'll go from there.
A tired and tearful Doug Dixon left headquarters protected by his parents. The threesome will return soon to piece together the days of sadness that led up to last night's happy ending. Sherry Sellers, Action 4.
I'm Scott Wallace. Tulsa's River Park is a popular place in the summertime. It's not unusual to see young boys fishing here along the banks of the Arkansas River. Tulsa detectives say that Doug Dixon, a 13-year-old companion, and 24-year-old Oscar Johnson frequented this park. It's where police caught up with young Dixon and Johnson Tuesday afternoon. Police found the trio in this old Ford station wagon. From the personal belongings found inside the wagon, it's obvious this car was somebody's home. A pair of fishing poles lend credence to the police theory that Johnson caught his dinner each afternoon in the Arkansas River. Tulsa police have impounded another car, which they say also belonged to Johnson. Detectives say Johnson and his companions lived in this tired old Chevy until it broke down. Documents found inside the car show that Johnson collected $128 worth of food stamps from the welfare department in Tulsa. The receipt is dated July 1st, 9 days after Doug Dixon disappeared. After examining the cars and questioning the boys, Tulsa detectives think Johnson committed at least one sex crime in Tulsa County. The Tulsa County DA's office is expected to decide soon whether to file criminal charges against Johnson. Scott Wallace, Action 4 in Tulsa.
Water shortages are nothing new for the state, but so far this summer there have been no major problems. But the switch from wet to dry weather is changing that. As the temperature rises, so does the demand on the state's water systems. Distribution, not supply, is the major problem. Portions of eastern Oklahoma and Beckham County in western Oklahoma are facing rationing. Elsewhere, systems are holding their own.
Well, I think the situation over the last 2 or 3 weeks, where it's been kind of hot and dry, is getting into our more traditional hot and dry weather pattern. If it continues over the next couple of weeks, then I think communities will be looking at a situation where they'll have to possibly react to that and at least have people conserve water on a voluntary basis, if not mandatorily.
Smith says conservation isn't a cure-all, but most people could cut back on their water use. For instance, with normal use, your shower will take 25 gallons. Conserving saves 21 gallons. Normal dishwashing takes 30 gallons. If conserving, only 5. Watering your yard takes 10 gallons a minute. Conservation use would eliminate watering. Debbie Mash, Action 4.
The bridges over the Broadway extension and I-240 were in such bad shape of deterioration, the Department of Transportation decided to spend about $1 million fixing it. Heavy concrete median dividers were brought in to begin the task. Traffic will be narrowed to one lane over the bridge on both the north and south sides. Yellow stripes were streaked across the road, and workers got ready for 10 months of extensive repair. The chief engineer says people will still be able to get to and from downtown.
There'll be one lane open from through Edmond downtown.
But getting on, the on and off ramps around the bridge will be closed.
Yes, they can't get on and off of I-240.
The bridges are nearly 20 years old. Hopefully, the new repairs will make them last a lot longer than that.
School bells will ring again in late August at Starr Elementary School, site of a fatal boiler explosion earlier this year. 6 students and a teacher were killed in that explosion, which destroyed the school's cafeteria on January 19th. Construction of a new lunchroom is underway at Starr, and the school board has opted for major renovations throughout the entire building. A new coat of paint inside and out has already been finished. Extensive plumbing and electrical work is also underway. While remodeling, construction crews found numerous leaks in the gas lines surrounding the school. An all-new 2-inch gas pipe has already been put in place. School officials say they are taking their time with the work, with an emphasis on safety.
Of course, our main purpose was to make sure that the building was safe. And first thing we did was tested the gas line, the exterior gas line, and found that it was leaking in several places. So we replaced the total gas line. Many of these things were scheduled. The painting was scheduled for Starr before the accident. And so we thought this would be a good time to do it, so we just continued to do what we had on our schedule.
Most of the cosmetic improvements to the main part of the building have been completed. But according to school officials, the cafeteria will not be finished until late October. Accommodations have already been made to make sure the children can have a hot lunch. They say time heals all wounds, and when the children do come back to school next month, the building will have a new look. The memories will remain, but school administrators are working very hard to make sure the danger won't. At Starr Elementary School, Kurt Autry, Action 4.
The runway at Expressway Air Park ends at Northeast 63rd Street. Witnesses to yesterday's accident say fears his plane apparently touched down too fast. When the pilot attempted to take off again, the landing gear broke off when it struck a curb. The plane flipped into a nearby creek. It's not the airport's first accident. Just recently, a twin-engine plane ran off the runway, causing extensive damage to the plane's belly. And airport old-timers remember two instances when trainers hit trucks on Northeast 63rd Street. Some pilots say Expressway's runway is too short. A tree-covered hill on one end and 63rd Street on the other doesn't leave much room for error. Dan Stroud disagrees.
Tighten your belt. There you go. And make sure this is tight.
Stroud teaches aerobatic flying. He takes off and lands at Expressway Air Park daily. Stroud says the private airport is as safe as the pilots who use it.
Oh, it's a safe airport. It's got a relatively short runway, but it's no shorter than any other runway around. Expressway has gotten a bit of a bad reputation because it's a little short and because it's got a hill on one end, but like I said, any adequate private pilot could land here safely. They do it all the time.
Expressway Air Park is privately owned. Since it receives no federal money, the FAA can't order the owners to make changes to the airfield. However, the owners have voluntarily realigned the runway to make takeoffs and landings safer. And the airport's most famous user has an unblemished safety record at Expressway. Highway Patrol pilots fly Governor Nye's big turboprop into the airstrip nearly every day. Scott Wallace, Action 4, Northeast Oklahoma City.
She contacted an attorney who had come to this office, acknowledged that she in fact did not have a license, and by stipulation of the parties it has been agreed that a permanent injunction will be entered by the court restraining her permanently from operating an unlicensed daycare facility.
There are a lot of daycare centers in the area that are reputable.
In fact, did not have a license, and by stipulation of the parties, it has been agreed that a permanent injunction will be entered by the court restraining her permanently from operating an unlicensed daycare facility.
I wouldn't like to overblow the situation, and all that I would recommend is that people should be on the lookout, and at the earliest sign or symptom, get in touch with their private doctors. We have already informed private doctors in the city and the county about these cases. And at this stage, anything we're doing, I will call precautionary.
The
ruffles and flourishes. The spit and polish of a change of command ceremony. Dignified yet spirited, happy yet sad, because these soldiers are losing their commander for the last 2.5 years, Major General J.T. Edwards. There have been a lot of changes at the Air Logistics Center since Edwards' arrival in 1980. The B-1 bomber weapon system will be supported here. Cruise missile modifications of the B-52 and the modernization of the nation's largest jet engine overhaul facility were also accomplished. And everyone knows the importance of the AWACS radar system. Edwards today thanked those under his command for making it so enjoyable for him.
To you, I leave a charge of continuing in the spirit of excellence. I leave you in good hands to accomplish that. To the members of the community, I thank you for your presence today. I thank you for your presence every day that you have been a part of Tinker Field and this great facility since it opened in 1942.
Major General James E. Light Jr. will take over for Edwards. Although General Edwards is leaving Tinker, he won't be far away. He's moving down the road to Norman to head up the new energy facility at the University of Oklahoma. Mark O'Neill, Action 4, Tinker Air Force Base.
In my opinion, a very minority of the news media has misled the residents, students, to be lulled into a sense of security insofar as observing the rules of the institution, which are set up for the protection of themselves and other students. It is also reported to me by affidavits that certain people in the development and in the conducting of the discovery procedures in the Terry D. versus Rader lawsuit have made statements which are being interpreted by some students and resulting in assaults on the staff.
Clearly what the commission was doing was closing the door on Charles Cleveland and Jim Martin and the Coalition for Fair Utility Rates. No one else has been going down there to represent themselves or to try to represent residential ratepayers, small business, and farmer ratepayers. So it then became absolutely clear that the conclusion of this thing was going to have to be political, not legal.
Since the last election, when $340,000 was raised by the utilities to reelect the incumbents, we have seen $673 million in rate increases. Within the last 75 days, there has been $375 million in rate increases signed by Townsend, Eagle Eye Eagleton, and Baker, averaging $5 million a day in rate increases. And these are by people that say that we've got a good deal on utility rates and saying how tough it is over there. Well, the tough job are for the people that are having to raise the money to pay these astronomical utility bills.
This is no average teenager, and he's warming up for a not-so-average run. 16-year-old Luis Figueroa is running across country, and Oklahoma's just one stop during his 3,500-mile trip. Luis left New Jersey June 27th, his destination San Francisco, California. He runs over 80 miles each day in hopes of making the cross-country jaunt in 58 days. That would break the current cross-country record by 2 weeks. But Lewis isn't running to break a record. He's running to fulfill a promise.
I'm making the run because I promised a 9-year-old boy who was dying of cancer that I'd run across the U.S. for him if he'd fight it to the end. And I was only joking at the time I made the promise, but to him it was real. And a promise is a promise, and I've never backed out of a promise in my life, and I never will, as long as I can help it. So I'm out here because Bobby fought when he died, and he fulfilled his end of the bargain fighting it, and now I'm playing my part of the bargain by running across the U.S. for him.
Through pledges, Lewis has raised thousands of dollars for cancer research. If you would like to help, you can contribute to the American Cancer Society, 1312 Northwest 24th, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, 73106. Debbie Mash, Action 4.